Hello and welcome to our painting stream. My dad will be down here shortly to join me, but I'm going to walk you through a little bit as we start to what we will be doing today. As you can see, I have a big pile of 3D printed things here. We'll probably get some painting done after a little bit, but we're going to start the day off with gluing. We're going to have a whole bunch of pieces to glue. We're building a very large dungeon tile set that we're going to keep pushing through. That's what we're printing on our printers back here. And what these are a dungeon tile set like this that snaps together with magnets. And it's a carved stone wall, sort of keep, dungeon, whatever you might use in your D&D campaign. So we're putting together a whole bunch of them, gluing them up and letting those cure today. We're doing some interesting pieces. So this big one I'm doing is a large curved wall corner like this. And if you're interested in any of these 3D prints and their designs, you can see them on our attributions page on our website, dicendungeons.com. You can check them out there, basically. What I'm doing is I'm taking these little magnets, just a little bunch of little magnet balls, and I am slotting them into these various bases. Now the tiles will be glued on these bases, and they provide both the underlying structural support to hold the base together and pockets for these magnets. And once they're glued in place, the magnets can pull each other together and just help provide a little support so your dungeon doesn't, slide apart as you're putting it together and playing in it. We use these dungeon tiles in our D&D stream that we do on Sundays at 2 p.m. Eastern here on our Twitch channel. And then you can also find the podcasts and VODs and all that on our website, dicendungeons.com.
So we're gluing today?
More gluing today.
Oh, that's exciting.
So, my dad has arrived. We'll probably get through the gluing somewhat quickly, and then we'll get back to maybe finishing our towers and gluing those together as well. We'll see.
So, you want me to put some magnets into holes?
Yeah, so it's good to get the bases as magnetized as possible beforehand, so you're not fumbling with magnets while you have epoxy sitting on your fingers, things like that. The only thing you have to be careful of is the magnets will pull each other out of the holes until they're glued shut.
And they'll go flying.
And they will fly all over the place. But at least they're generally together when they do that. So if you find the one, you find them all. So there's just a whole lot of bases. We have 3 different types of dungeon tile we're putting together today. 2 very large ones and a couple regular walls that we've assembled before, and a whole bunch of tiny walls. So, I showed you the large wall here assembles like this on those really large bases here. Then going down a step on these square bases, we have a wall and floor combo that goes like this and lets you assemble a nice dungeon out of it. And then finally, using the same wall, but this very small. Hi, Inesis? I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that name right. Welcome.
Hello.
The last wall we're producing are on these little teeny bases. It doesn't look like much. Linsis. Well, welcome, Linsis. We're putting together dungeon tiles to start off the day. And this doesn't look like much, but the way you can use it is by putting two together, you can create a little 1 square wide hall, which is nice. So it's like in D&D terms, it would be a 5-foot wide hall where a single character can pass down in combat. Yeah.
Yep.
So both of us are taking these little magnet balls and slotting them first into the bases that will be glued, that the dungeon tiles will be glued onto.
Mm-hmm.
And that lets them sort of pop together. This is a different dungeon set. Yeah, they're very tiny. This is a different dungeon set. It's like a plaster wall that we have finished and painted, but you can see it's on the same sort of base and gives you sort of an idea of a finished product.
Yep.
We haven't painted any of these ones yet. All of them came out. That's always fun.
Yep, we've just been printing many walls and floors and bases.
Yeah, we're printing. You can't see them right now. We have some 3D printers behind us here that are actively printing more of these dungeon set tiles. Oh, yeah.
And what we're going to do, I guess, is wait until they're all glued together, and then we're going to prime them all. That'll be fun.
We'll be using an airbrush. Unfortunately, we can't easily show on the show the airbrush priming because you need good ventilation, and our little work area down here does not have
the same level of ventilation.
Great ventilation comparatively. So we'll probably be doing them in an open garage or some similar setup. Because there's a lot of toxic fumes in spraying paint.
Yeah, even if it's an acrylic,
it can be bad.
Yeah, it's not good to inhale a lot. So when we're spraying, we do that.
But once we have a sort of an assembly line that happens once we get all of these magnets in place.
Yeah, I mixed the epoxy and put it on the bases, and then Nikki.
I moved them. We have a metal table behind us, which actually kind of helps because it keeps the magnets held down and helps stabilize the piece as it cures. And we basically let them sit. It's a 5-minute epoxy, so it doesn't take that long. Gives us just enough window to get them positioned quite right, and then we're not knocking them over. If it was something like a hour longer epoxy.
Yep. So I usually mix enough so that I can spread it on enough of these before it sets up too much and we can't use it anymore. Mix another bunch and then mix another bunch until it's done.
Alright, so that is all of our bases. Why don't we get the large ones out of the way?
So this looks like it'll be 3 batch epoxy job.
So what's important with this is that if you look here, the floor attaches on this side, obviously, and the wall attaches here, so you need a fair amount on a lot of it, because the floor doesn't have a support other than the wall on that side, and the wall only has the curve. So, you know, don't be too, don't hold back.
Be generous with the epoxy.
Yeah. Because these are large, fancy pieces. There's a lot of leverage points that could cause problems. So,
I don't know where the paper towels are.
the paper towels probably got used to clean something out there.
Probably get one.
I will go get some paper towel.
And I'll get out the isopropyl alcohol. Isopropyl is used while this stuff hasn't cured yet for cleanup. It's, fairly gentle. Doesn't smell too horrible.
Not like the hardener of the epoxy.
Yeah, it gets the stuff off your fingers so it doesn't get everywhere. I got a little hardener on my fingers, so I'm going to clean that off. Nikki will want some because putting these together almost always results in a little bit of getting on. So
and our doors, we're printing some doors as well. These will swing open and shut in the dungeon. And we just had some finish. I'm going to let them cool for a minute while we do this.
Right. So I had, I tried to get equal sized puddles of the epoxy and the hardener. Closer that they are to
even,
the better. And then I mix it all up, and the chemical reaction starts.
And all you're seeing are his hands right now, but it's the best place so that there's plenty of room to move and maneuver things.
Yeah, I do it over here so that the possibility of a mess is minimized.
Or at least contained to a specific area. And I always forget to tie my hair up when I'm doing gluing, so I'm just gonna stuff it in my shirt so I don't get epoxy in my hair. Oh, we had someone off camera hand me a hair tie. That was nice.
My tech tool here, toothpick. Spread this stuff. So I'm putting quite a lot on here, so be careful it doesn't make too much of a mess on you.
Yes, we'll probably end up having a little seeping, but we're putting it all together before it's primed, so if there is a little spot or two where there's some glue sticking out, that won't be a problem painting in the long term because
you won't see it.
You won't see it. So this is what a put together piece looks like. It's still very loose, so I'm gonna run it over right away. And what I need to do over here is make sure all of the edges are squared up and flush, because once it's glued, it's hard to paint. And because there's a lot of glue, I'm gonna have to clean my fingers a little between these.
We're doing the little ones next?
Whichever ones you prefer.
No, these are closer. That's what we'll do.
We have an escaped ball, which can be quite a problem when it's covered in glue, but there we go. Just popping it back in.
A fair amount of it leaked out there, so I'm gonna let me get
Wipe off the edges. Because we're using a larger amount of glue because of the size of the piece, that's just bound to happen. So, that's all set. I have a lot of glue on my fingers, so let me get that off. And now I am going to get some pieces together. And after these dry, I can show how they might stick together. But, luckily, there's not really a wrong way to put these on one side and then the other. And then there's always a little bit of a backup that occurs, because you can usually put the glue on faster than I can set them evenly.
You know, especially with these little ones. They're small.
But unfortunately, I still have to do the same 3 dimensions each time.
Pour out another set of epoxy puddles. We're not going to mix them yet, but they'll be available. These puddles are actually getting used up.
One thing I need to always check as well is to make sure the walls aren't leaning forwards or backwards. You want them straight up. And it's not common, but it can happen. But I'm also on a time limit, because the longer the glue sits, the longer it cures.
You know, I was thinking, if you line them up.
Well, as long as they're securing. I also need to make sure I'm preserving space. And we have a visitor.
Oh, you get
Come
down
here. Okay, so here's a rare sighting. A puppy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he doesn't get down here very often.
He's usually not allowed down here. But
now this is new,
He's an
and she's going to
escapee.
explore.
Go over there. Zombie.
All sorts of new things. So, okay, then mix the next batch.
Yeah, I'm just moving over.
Okay. Doing the exciting mixing of the puddles.
One thing I want to be careful of lining these up, though, is that they do have some glue that sticks out the sides.
Oh, so they don't stick together?
And I don't necessarily want them all stuck together.
Yeah.
So I do have to be careful with that. We're probably going to need some more alcohol. This is drying out. Get my workplace set up here. Knock everything over, that's always good. Move the tiles down so you can reach them.
Without knocking into anyway.
Alright.
So yeah, we as we said before, we end up priming and painting and then using these in our Dungeons and Dragons stream.
Yeah, we both play in it. My wife plays is the DM.
Sundays at 2.
Eastern.
Yeah, Eastern. Soon to be not daylight savings time. So remember to fall back and tune in at 2 o'clock standard time, not daylight savings time.
A problem with a piece over here. Doesn't want to settle correctly.
Was the wall falling?
I'm not sure. There's like a slight bump. Causing it. Yeah.
A bump in the base.
Causing so it's a slight printing error that we missed. So I'm gonna try and quickly
cut it off
so that the wall can sit flat.
Oh, I see. On the base of the wall. So I'm gonna.
That is much better.
Glue up this last one, and then I'll help you put these together so that they go more quickly.
Yes, that would be perfect.
We'll put the little floor pieces on, and you can put the wall pieces on. Then I can't miss anything.
Have another small piece causing problems. Some of these have little corner chunks that are just
On the bases of the walls.
yeah.
Let me.
They're very small, but they make a remarkable difference.
And they are pretty tiny.
I'm gonna try and take level something. It can make a surprising amount of difference. I'm actually gonna straighten these up over here first, because I'm losing some time on the curing process, and then move them over and give them a final check. This floor is on upside down.
Oh.
So
I thought I couldn't mess up. But it was
can you clean that up?
Yeah. It was set up upside down. It was just pulling him off the pile. Didn't even look. Miracle of solvent.
That floor actually has a small problem in it on the base as well, but I'm able to sort of compensate.
That wall.
The floor on this one
Oh, it's got a lump.
is a little bit a lump here.
Yeah.
It's kind of too late though, so.
I can cut part of that on.
Well, let it dry.
Yeah, and then we can trim it.
And then we'll trim it. I was able to compensate for.
Okay. We just have the 4 now. So
Now I just have 4 standard wall.
And we'll mix just a small amount of epoxy now.
Yep. I will take this opportunity to first clean my fingers off of all the epoxy. And then I'm going to double check the bases of all of these. Just to make sure they're clear. Basically, the problems I was running into is sometimes there's like, they're printed on a, what's called a float. I can actually probably show you. So these are some of those base styles. And they're printed on this plastic float, which just helps give them a normalized bed in which they can adhere to. And you can typically just tear them right off. They're not attached particularly thoroughly to get a base. And then this float is, luckily it's a biodegradable plastic, and you don't keep it, so. But sometimes, rarely, the plastic adheres to the float a little more, and you can have little chunks of float left on the bottom side of a piece. What that can mean is an uneven surface for gluing or for just standing on a table. So you always want to make sure your bottoms are clean.
Yep, gotta make sure your bottom's clean. Okay, just enough.
Alright.
This will be garbage. Yep.
There we go. Alright, and that is all the stuff we have for gluing right now. We'll have more coming shortly, but for today, I think we are pretty much there. So,
Finishing towers?
we'll probably be finishing our tower. One thing we've been printing are these doors. So they sit on a tile, and they actually go in here, and you can hinge them so they open and shut, which is pretty nice. But we still have some pieces to print. There's a little top part bar that goes over it, for example. We have 3, 8. So I need one more set of doors. So while we're getting water for painting, I'm gonna put these magnets away, and then print another set of doors.
I'm getting little cups of water for cleaning brushes. So since we are going to be finishing up Towers.
Hopefully, yeah. Do we have gloves?
Yes, somewhere. Thought I brought them down, but maybe not.
All right. So.
Well, want me to go find them?
Yeah. So what we're going to be working on next, we have been gluing and painting together these little towers. And we have these upper sections of tower as well that we've been working on. This is mostly done. I have 2 more sides to do in the buff here, in these triangles, so that they look like that. And then I have to clean it up. And then we're going to give all of these a wash treatment. And how these work is once they're all painted up and ready to go, we will glue it into here to provide a 2-story guard tower that we can use in our D&D stream. It could be bandits, it could be guards, who knows, but it is nicely vertical. It's a very tall tower. And yeah, so our bottoms are painted, both of them, and they're ready for washing. But before we break out a whole bunch of umber wash, we want to get our tops ready to go as well. So what my job is today is to fill in these 2 sides with the buff color here. And then I need to take the red-brown that the rest of the wood is painted in and just go through, meticulously touch up any spots that maybe got a little buff spilled on them or maybe dried a little thinly. There's like a spot here, for example. And just give them a little touch up. It's not a huge, complicated task like painting a character mini. I have one sitting here. It's not like painting this drow character, for example. But it is something that we will be working on. So, my dad here is grabbing gloves that we will, at least I will, want to use when we're doing the washing. Just because of the sheer amount of surface area here, we'll probably be using a fair amount of wash to get that sort of woody effect. I see you also got yourself some Halloween candy leftovers.
I did. Fun size. I'm going to have fun with this. When you get older, you get to have nutritious lunches. Like a fun size Milky Way.
I haven't even had breakfast.
So I'm going to be using this brown to do all the touching up on all the messes I made when I did the light brown.
Yep, so you're on the stage. I just have 2 more triangle sides to do. And then I'll be doing that as well. And we do a lot of, we do some character things. We've been doing horses for a while. This is a horse that just got like a little bit of its base coat put in, for example. But we also do characters, but honestly, we do a whole lot of sets. Whoa, slipped, and now I have a spot to clean. That happens.
We have done red dwarf Red Granite Dwarf Caves.
Mm-hmm.
We've done
caverns. We've done plaster rooms. We've done a sewer.
Yeah, the sewer is cool. That's my favorite.
The sewer is your favorite?
I think that came out really well.
Well, we'll have to climb into the sewer a lot more in our campaign then. So we can have
I said it was my favorite set. I didn't say it was my favorite place to be. And I obviously should have started on the other side so that when I put my finger down to hold the thing steady, it doesn't go in the paint I just put in. But no, I did it backward.
And I'm gonna need a minor piece of epoxy. The floor right here is loose.
It's loose. Okay.
So it didn't adhere perfectly. So we're just gonna glue that back on. And I'll do that before I do the red brown because there's a little spot that didn't get painted because it was covered previously.
Okay, I'll mix up a little bit when you're ready.
Yeah, we'll wait till I'm through with the buff here. So I'm just gonna go through and do all the edges of these triangles first.
At this point, if you're a new viewer, I wear these awful trifocal glasses, and I can't use them when I'm working up close because I can't find the focusing spot, which means that I can't see anything more than about 1.5 feet away.
But you sure can see something 1.5 feet away, right? Which is where you're usually working.
Yeah, it's about as far as it goes. So that means I can't read the screen. So I won't be looking up to respond while I'm doing this because all I see is blurry things that might be words or not.
Meanwhile, I am farsighted, so I actually end up having my glasses down at the tip of my nose a lot of the time when I'm painting because I'm looking down, and then if I look up, I can see fine. But I often have very low glasses when I'm looking down and reading something or working on something, whatever it is, really. Now we have one of our cats meowing at us. This has been an animal-heavy stream today.
You know, this cat likes to talk. Especially likes us to know that he has arrived.
And exists. Very existential cat, always worrying about confirming his own existence. So now I'm just going back across the top row, and then once I have all these edges painted in, I'll just fill in the middle sections. So just slowly, sort of carefully, filling in all of these triangles, which is kind of relaxing actually, but kind of technical at the same time. But in a little bit, our dungeon tiles, well, probably almost now, even a lot of our dungeon tiles are should be dry. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they should be set by now.
So we're quickly approaching a critical mass on them where we're gonna have to do a really big priming and then probably many shows worth of dungeon tile painting. A lot of them are fairly simple. We'll be giving them a gray base coat, which can go pretty quickly because they're pretty much gray all around as a base coat. And then I'm thinking we'll probably take two different other colors and put a couple different colored blocks and things in each one in just sort of random locations before they'll get a wash treatment, which will help bring out the lines between the different bricks and give some variation to every single piece. Oops. Oh, that is a spot that I need to fix right there. But so the way I do that is I'm gonna have to wait for it to dry, and then I will just take the color it's supposed to be and just put a tiny spot over that to cover it up. Not very difficult. Is the stuff in the lid working for you? I was having trouble with it the other day.
Yeah, it's about gone now. It's been okay for a while.
Our red-brown is very low.
Yeah, it's near the end.
Of its bottle's life.
I put some thinner in it last time, which has helped the stuff in the bottle, but the stuff in the cap,
not so much.
Yeah, it's not as good as it could be. Gumming up the brush, basically. So we'll see how much more. There's not much left of it at all anyway.
All I'll really need is touch up, enough for touching up, so hopefully there's just enough. Alright, so there's one more side painted like that. All that's left is this last side here. The cap is starting to get gummy on the buff, so I'm gonna switch to the bottle.
Yeah.
Because you don't want a gummy paint, especially when you're trying to not get it everywhere.
Yeah, we tend to use the stuff in the cap because a fair amount of paint sticks in the cap after you shake it. And I mean, it keeps you from wasting the paint, but it also will just build up over time and make a mess. So when we use it from the cap, it serves a couple of purposes. But it's limited.
Alright, and I am getting closer to being done with this base coat. These have been surprisingly complicated in that they have a ton of surface area that you don't really notice because they're just so spindly. But like every single leg has multiple sides to it that you might not get. It's just a surprising amount of surface area that needs to get covered with these wood colors. And like there's these little ridges that have, you know, effectively double the amount of surface area that you're painting in. Just a lot of little hidden aspects to this that take a little extra time. High Tech Violence, thanks for the raid. We're doing some D&D scenic painting here. Just going through, getting some base coats on, and getting for these guard watchtowers for our D&D stream. And yeah, if anyone has any questions, please feel free to ask.
Yep, and welcome to the stream.
Well, we just finished gluing together some dungeon tiles that are currently curing behind us for a large set we're building. And I am putting... Oh, thank you. Yeah. So the towers we're building end up like this in the end. Oops, if I can slide it in right. We still have a little bit to go. Have to do some finishing work on them and everything like that. But we've been putting together dungeon tiles. This is a corner piece from a different set, and they are magnetized. So they magnetize a whole bunch of these together to create D&D dungeon sets that we use on our main D&D stream. So yeah, if you have any questions about what we're doing or anything like that, I'd be happy to answer them.
Nikki will. I can't read the screen.
My dad wears trifocals and cannot read chat very easily if he's painting.
No, so. I can see up close. But I can't see the 3 feet to the monitor and still read the screen. I can tell there's a monitor there.
But I can translate. Yeah, exactly. And we'll glue them together once they're all finished and set and have nice big tall towers. We also have ladders that will go between them. And these are all pieces that we 3D printed here on the machines that are going behind us. Oh, I know, right? Yeah, in-person D&D sessions. There's something about them that are just, you know, like playing on Discord or through Roll20 or some other service is nice, and it is definitely easier on the schedule. But there's just something so nice about in-person Dungeons and Dragons where you're not dealing with internet issues or people's computers forgetting to be plugged in, things like that. And yeah, our main D&D stream is our D&D stream that we do on Sundays here on this channel is we have one player who is currently on Zoom, but we're putting in some groundwork to get him in our area with us. So we'll be fully in person for that soon. I mean, we're all vaccinated and everything, so. Do you, are you a player or are you, yeah. Because he has he has questionable internet, so it can cause problems sometimes, so we're getting rid of that.
We will lose the humor of him freezing.
Uh-huh. Yeah. The more computers involved, the more that can go wrong with something like that. Do you do like DMing, or are you a player in your games, or do you do both? Yeah, nice. Yeah, we run it at 2 p.m. Eastern Sundays on this channel. My wife is the DM, and I play as a Changeling Druid. My dad here is a Furbolg fighter, and our other friend plays a Tabaxi Bard. It's a homebrew setting that my wife made. There's a little bit of like a nuclear power steampunky vibe to it, which is kind of nice. It's played in 5th edition though. And yeah, we're currently level 3. It's sort of a long, slow campaign where we're leveling up over time.
We used to think that levels were a myth.
Uh-huh. And but we've been chugging along. We're currently on our route to a closed off Dwarven Republic that might have a clue to some where my character's family has disappeared. Yeah, I play a Circle of Dreams druid. I was trained by a fae in druidic magic, so I tried to incorporate some of that fae quality to my character. My dad here's Furbolg Fighter is actually our other two characters play subclasses that we designed ourselves that are thematic to the world that we're playing in. So his fighter subclass is a subclass I designed with my wife, Lexi, called the Tashira Noon.
Which is Elven.
It's a elven fighter that uses dual wielding as its primary focus.
Because when I was youngish, my entire village disappeared, and eventually I was trained by an elderly elf that belonged to what seems to be a mysterious cult called Remarden that hardly anyone has ever heard about. So yes, I'm an elvish trained Furbolg fighter.
The main sort of concept of the subclass of fighter is that in battle he can use a bonus action to adopt different stances, which will provide him with various benefits, defensive and offensive benefits, so long as he's maintaining that stance in combat. So so he can sort of, and he'll learn more stances as he levels up. Our Tabaxi Bard is also part of a bard college that my wife and I put together, because he plays a very sort of brusque, a very short sort of Tabaxi Bard that has sort of a Russian accent
and a very very wry sense of humor. Which is used frequently in combat.
He has sort of a stoic demeanor about him, and he's much more about playing instruments well. He doesn't like sing or anything like that. It's sort of like about the art of the instrument performance. So I created a subclass with him in mind, with the help of our DM Lexi, that is focused a lot more about instrument playing than it is about using like wit and charm. I called it the College of the Virtuoso, and because I was looking through the colleges that existed, and they're just like a lot of them about knowing thing, like College of Lore, College of like Whispers. There's a lot of like being very socially charming in them, but there wasn't really anything that fit a good like I just want to be really good at playing music kind of bard.
And our bard is definitely not socially charming.
Yeah, he plays a very interesting bard. So I'm letting this dry for a moment, well, before I can do cleanup on it, by the way. But so there's a couple subclasses that we created. He's able to do a lot of sort of area effect buffs that he maintains in combat by playing his instruments. But he yeah, charisma casters, I'm guessing, who aren't very charismatic. Because that's what he's like. So a lot of his abilities for combat involve him Yeah, he's not charming at all. He's very
almost insulting.
Regularly insulting. He uses vicious mockery in combat a lot to inflict the disadvantage on attacks and everything. And he, but the subclass lets him be playing his instrument in combat and give us sort of an area of effect buff as long as we're hearing him. But it eats up his standard action to maintain it, so he has to rely on doing things like bonus actions. And my druid, I do a lot of sort of crowd control spells with her. She's very fluid in form because not only is she a changeling, yes, he has insulted some people to death because it does do psychic damage. Where Lexi has ruled it when he does that, they basically just like sit down and give up and just are like out of combat effectively. Yeah, but I do a lot of shape-shifting both as a changeling and as a druid. But I focus on fey magics, so charm person, hold person, enchantments, illusions, things like that. I also like to use Thorn Whip, which is one of the cantrips that lets me pull someone 10 feet to trigger attacks of opportunity from Ulseth here, who is pretty much our primary damage dealer.
Pretty much.
And frontliner.
But if it wasn't for the crowd control,
you might get overwhelmed.
We would have been dead many times. So actually, the party,
for being a three-person,
only three of us, we do pretty well.
Yeah.
Unless you materialize over water while being fully clothed in your armor.
Yeah, that might have happened in one recent session here. We might have used a dimension door to try and get into a boat and not gauge the distance correctly and fallen into the ocean in full gear. And my character has -1 strength and was not very good at swimming in armor and very quickly started drowning.
That was the closest you came to getting killed.
No, actually it's not. I've been knocked down to like 1 to 3 hit points a few times. But I don't have a ton of armor or health. So.
But it was stressful.
Yep.
It all started because the DM said this boat is 300 yards away. And somebody said, "Oh, I'm going to teleport 300 feet."
With the 500 feet worth of dimension door. And we ended up going 500 feet when it was 300 yards. So 900 feet. That was interesting. But we got out of it eventually. If you're interested, we also did a Halloween special, which should still be on VOD here on Twitch, but also a YouTube version is up and a podcast version. And we have a website where all of this is visible as well. It's DysonDungeons.com.
The Halloween special.
The Halloween special
really
was
good.
fun. It was a 2-parter. We had one of our friends come in as an extra player. It's set in the 90s in the Boston area, but some stuff happens and we end up using Ravenloft rules for D&D. I'd love to have you check it out. We put a lot of work into it. Lexi did a great job running it.
Yeah, we'd love to get feedback.
Yeah. But yeah, we play like 12 to 15-year-old kids in Boston in the 90s, and things get weird, basically.
Yeah.
But it was great, and yeah, but we're just keeping going with our D&D game. Since I'm waiting for this to dry, I could grab our minis.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, these are pretty nice. You can see our characters. Sorry, I'm sitting here trying to touch up all the spots after painting the little contrasting color triangles. So I'm getting the dark brown mostly done, but I have to go back over it with the buff, which will be convenient because then we'll switch colors.
Here's our Tabaxi Bard, if I can get some focus going. He is he likes to try and learn a lot of different instruments.
He is the chosen one as far as the ocarina goes.
And he is Garfield, Orange Tabaxi style. Here is my Changeling Druid. She's fairly plain because she's a druid. She just sort of wears some leather armor. Though I did, since I've gotten this, purchase in-game I had a glamored set of studded leather enchanted for a whole bunch of money. And now I can change my outfit at will, so it helps me with my being convincing as a changeling. And here's our Furbolg, elven-trained fighter. And his armor's all shiny because it is gleaming, so it doesn't get dust on it. Dust and dirt.
Mm-hmm.
What's important is the rope. He uses a lot of rope.
Yes, I do. Little did I know when I designed the minifig how important that rope would be.
I have another model here. This isn't from this campaign. This is from a home campaign that we ran of a drow character. But since I'm here showing minis and it's present, that's Letheria, her name is. And these should be dry-ish. Mm-hmm. So we were gluing these today. They're part of a new dungeon set. They're completely unpainted and primed right now, so they're a little shiny and hard to see. And part of this is something we 3D printed off and use them in the show. So they all hook together like that. Yeah, painting miniatures is a really fun hobby to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you haven't yet. It's not the biggest cost investment. You can get some nice minis from, like, there's a couple providers that sell them, pre-made ones. I think this little Jaguar we were working on, or Puma, was made by one of the companies. And then you just need some paint, basically. But these are some pieces we were gluing together, so you can make hallways with them, things like that. There's only a couple wall sections right now that we've been painting, but I can grab. You want me to grab, like, the sewer?
Oh yeah, show off the sewers. Those came out really well. Yeah, the sewers actually were some of the easier ones to paint. But Nikki came up with a scheme to make them look really, really good.
So I have
so it's like 4 layers.
Bucket of minis.
Yeah.
These were all painted here on this show.
These are printed.
Printed and painted. Oh yeah, what packed warlock do you do? So we have a few houses that we've painted on show. Like those. We printed all of them first here and painted and primed them. Primed and painted. We also have a water wheel. Oh, a homebrew patron. That's pretty awesome. I've been sort of thinking if my druid ever dies, hopefully doesn't, but you know. Warlock always sounds a lot of fun to me to play.
Yeah, so these were
we also have
what did we do? Paint these gray first or green?
Yeah. So they were all painted gray. And then we put a green wash over them.
Green, and then brown, and then black, and then to make it look like there's water running through it, some epoxy just dribbled on. But I think they came out really nicely.
So just we'll rotate it around so there's a better view. But let me see if I can grab. There it is. So this is how the dungeon styles sort of go together. They pull that out. There we go. They all stick together. They're magnetized on the base, so they help hold each other together. We also have like flat tiles, so you can make floors. If I can go in the right direction. Floors like that, and they're just really nice. This is stuff that we build here because it's expensive to buy it from some of the well-known manufacturers, but we print, paint, do everything to make these dungeon tiles, and I feel like it adds a nice bit to our D&D stream. We've also composed some river tiles like this that all link together, and did some lacquer, effectively a lacquer coating on it so that it has that shiny appearance. But yeah, so that's the dungeon tiles that we use on our show. Just setting them back in.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, thanks for that. The sewers.
Those are your favorite.
We weren't quite sure how they were going to turn out, but Nikki did a great job figuring out how to make them look slimy and hooey.
And gross.
Yeah. They turned out really, really well. So.
You need to get the bottom on that.
I need to do tiny little bits of cleaning up around the sides where when I did the cleanup, I overdid, and I need to undo. And then I need to paint the bottom, which will be easy because it's just one big thing.
We gotta set our characters out so they're safe.
But I'm going to do the little bits of touch-up first. I'm going to get out a big brush and paint all over the bottom. So we'll start here. Nope, glasses are off. Can't see the screen again. Well, technically I can see the screen. I just can't read anything on it.
Yeah, so I'm back. I'm going to set these dungeon tiles over here. They need to get primed. It's sort of the next step. But because we have so many, we're going to be using an airbrush, and we can't really do it down here. Yeah. Thank you so much for coming and checking us out and seeing what we're working on. And
yeah, thank you.
Hopefully, we'll see you on the show. Tune in on Sundays.
And on the painting on Tuesdays and Fridays.
And thank you for rating us. So, thank you. I have to get to clean up, so basically there's a lot of little spots that might be hard to see on camera, but for example right here, where the lighter color got onto the darker color. So I just need to make sure all of that's covered up before we go and wash it. And for anyone who is new to painting, what washing means is a wash is a very liquidy sort of paint.
Kind of dilute.
It's very diluted. And what that lets you do is put a very thin translucent layer over whatever you're working on. And that translucent layer will seep into cracks, for example, on a model, and create sort of spots of contrast and wear, and just make a piece look more alive. Depending on what look you're going for, you do have to be a little cautious with the volume you put on. But for something like this, where it's a guard tower out in the woods, it can probably be pretty worn and beaten looking and dirty. But something like a character might not be quite so much. So one of the fun parts, at least to me, of doing the finishing on a piece with the wash and everything is you can sort of think through, how was this item used? Where would it be worn? Where would it be nice looking? Where was it maintained? Things like that. So a ogre in chainmail will probably, well, you know, I don't want to judge ogres, but some ogres might not maintain their armor as well as like a town guard, for example. And as such, you can make their armor a little grimier, darker, more messed up if you want it. Maybe they are a business ogre, though, and would be wearing a very nice suit. So, you know, you don't judge. Ogres. Yeah, so what I'm doing right now is I'm going around the inside of this and trying to get all of the spots that might need a little touching up. Partially because this is the most annoying area to paint and get your hands into, and I want to do it first so I don't have to think about it later. But touching up is fairly easy, kind of relaxing. The nice thing I like about touching up is that especially if you're new to painting, sometimes you can feel like, I have to get it right on the first thing because paint is so messy if you get it wrong. But in reality, there's so much like leeway that you get with paint. You can always paint over, and if it's to the point where it's like you put on paint way too thick or anything, there are paint strippers and thinners that will actually remove the paint from the figure or whatever model you're working on. And even if you break a model, you can usually glue it back together too. So it's actually surprisingly forgiving.
Yeah, like how many times has the staff head broken off of Zarya?
So my druid's staff head has broken several times now and been re-glued. If I ever make a new figure of her, I'll probably not include a staff as part of it, because that
some people just can't be trusted with fragile things.
Well, you know, in the heat of combat, sometimes things happen. But every time we've been able to just glue it right back on, and it's been very nice and easy to fix, really. A big thing that, if you're interested in getting into model painting, is just do a little research about what materials, what kind of paint you might want to use. Pretty much in any sort of endeavor, especially in artistic endeavors or any endeavors where you're making something, there's often a tool or a material designed to do what you're trying to do. And it can be so much easier to just use the right thing the first time rather than trying to force something to work. So, you know, always keep an eye out for what would be the best tool for the job in this thing. So, like, the paints we're using are acrylic water-based paints. We mostly do set design. The occasional character, we've done some horses, things like that, but the bulk of our miniature painting is sets, not unlike these. And we use two brands of paint mostly. There's Tamiya and Vallejo paints. These are Tamiyas in these little pots, and Vallejo come in, they're also called game color sometimes, come in these little bottles. And Tamiya paint's actually designed for like model airplanes and ships, you know, like World War II models. So they have a lot of sort of subtle colors, like these wood colors, but also like military greens, things like that.
Lots of grays. Not really very many bright primary colors.
Yeah, so if you want more bright, interesting colors, like this orange that we used on 9s, the Tabaxi Bard, you need to go with Vallejo, for example. But if you're really into like big character models, acrylics will work okay, but you might be better off finding and learning about an oil paint, for example, which is a very different type of painting. It has a lot more blending built into it as a material. It's slower drying. One of the things we like the acrylics for set design is that it dries quite quickly.
Right. So if you're doing like the sewer tiles, or you're doing maybe three or four layers,
yeah,
you don't want to wait a week between layers.
Yeah, instead you can wait like half an hour, or some of them will be dry by the time you finish getting through the set, and you can go on to the next layer almost immediately.
Yeah, the acrylics, you know, for the most part are fine. The ones we use hardly ever show brush marks, which is really nice, especially if you're doing touch-up and you're painting over a color over and over again. It doesn't like build up in a way so that you end up having lumps due to the paint.
Yeah.
And they clean up with water, as I'm cleaning my fingers now.
Yeah, so you can be a little more laissez-faire with it because it's easier to clean up than something like an oil.
Yeah. And if something gets really gummed up, like these big brushes do occasionally, actually just some like isopropyl alcohol or denatured alcohol.
Or if it's really bad, some paint thinner.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, we kind of like using those. It's almost all low gloss. You can get glossy paints.
Like you saw in Ulcess Armor.
Yeah, but we don't use those very much in what we're doing. So this one's just drying on the bottom, so I'm watching paint dry here. But I think, if we wanted to do some washing today, yet I don't know if you do or not.
Well, let's see, it's 4:30.
4:30 there, we might do one.
Yeah.
These are the top part of the 2-story tower. But the bottom parts are, they've been there for a week or so now. So we could wash those.
For sure.
And by the time those are done, probably do these.
Yeah, I just have to get through all of my touch-up. I just want to make sure I don't have, it's a Dungeons and Dragons set. Like, it's not a display model. You can certainly be as perfectionist as you want, but some of this stuff is going to be covered up by wash. Some of it won't really be visible unless you're really closely inspecting it. So,
and the cameras don't get that close.
The real goal is just to be happy with it yourself. If that means having a piece that is completely immaculate, perfect scale replica, by all means. But if you're just like, I just really want a Watchtower, and it can be okay, that's perfectly acceptable. So I'm kind of using this red-brown is like kind of on its almost empty.
Yeah,
so
there's not much left of it.
I'm having to go kind of deep in the pot here to
find it.
To find it. But some of these I painted when I was a little more tired, a little more shaky. I can tell as I go around and clean it up where that was. I mostly just don't want big glaring spots. If it's not perfect, I'm gonna be personally okay with it. I am by no means a professional model painter. I don't really want to pretend to be either, so whatever works, though. It's kind of how I look at it. Alright. And there are like techniques you can learn and practice and get better at painting as you go along. One thing I like to do is keep a pinky on the model I'm painting in order to help me stabilize between the model and my hand. Just to give myself some consistent brush movement. Things like that. Little things just add up. Knowing your materials, knowing how much paint is on your brush and how it's going to behave when it hits the model is something that you can learn over time. knowing how thick or thin your paint is. If you have a very thick paint, it can build up and get gummy. But if you have an overly thin paint, it can just sop around everywhere. So sort of knowing what works best for you with your materials is very valuable, and sort of building up your skills as a model painting person. I think I have one more side to do. And this one doesn't have all that much touch up. I know you're very bored. No?
Just resting.
Some things, if you're learning how to paint, that you can sort of think about is, how are you approaching the model with your brush? Are you just going straight at it? Are you maybe coming in at the right angle? Something I like to do if I'm like filling in along a line is actually start a little bit away from it and then push forward into that line, and just, it gives me personally a little bit more control over where the brush is going. I think all I have left are a spot or two on the inside here, which are fairly quick and easy. Okay, you know what? I'm happy with that. Is it perfect? No. But when it's washed, it'll be good.
Does it look like a tower?
It looks like a tower to me, so I'm gonna set that off to the side to let it dry. Make sure to cap up my paint and clean off my brush. If you forget to close your paint, you lose a lot of paint because it will dry. If you forget to clean your brush, well, there's ways to de-paintify it, but, you know, in the long term, you'll lose the brush. And brushes do get replaced over time. I have a tendency to use brushes a lot longer than they should be used. Take another one, thank you.
We're gloving up because we're just going to be holding it while we slop a whole lot of wash on it. So it's going to be getting on our fingers. There's no way to avoid it.
Yeah.
Well, there is, but it would just not. It's not worth it.
Yeah, these are very.
It's easier just to be messy.
Exactly. These are. Are you doing one?
Yeah.
All right. Which one do you want to do? I don't know.
I don't care.
I don't know whose this is.
Doesn't
that
matter.
one's closer. So these are the bottoms of the towers that we're going to be washing.
And we're going to be washing
all of it.
Everything.
Because these are... So before we start pouring wash, when you're going in to finish, so this is just the base coat right now, which means it just has the colors where they're supposed to be. But it doesn't have any finishing to it right now. It is kind of bright for a tower. It looks brand new. If these are something that have been sitting out in the woods for a while, they're not likely to look this nice. So what a wash will do is it will seep into like all of the cracks, for example, all of those planks that you're seeing in between the zigzag. And it will help enunciate that, bring out contrast, and tone down everything. If you want, you can start pouring it. So it's really important when you're doing a wash, if you're trying to get a certain look, like a watchtower that's been used for a long time, to think about where would it be worn, how would it be worn, things like that. And one thing to consider with wash is because it is so wet, it has a tendency to slide around. So if you want something to be particularly dark, you might want to let it dry a little. So if I wanted this side that I'm currently doing to be extra dark, or to sit in the cracks extra well, I might want to let it dry the way it's sitting right now, because it will slowly wick away because it's so wet, such a wet paint. If it's sitting upright like that, it takes, I'd say, a good half hour to dry properly. And if in that case, it will run down the model with gravity sometimes if it's applied particularly thickly.
Which is kind of what I wanted to do.
Yeah, which can be a nice effect, because if it's sitting like that, it will collect in like the bottom of these V's and create a very grungy, dirty look to it. And this umber wash is kind of thick.
It is. No, I shook it. It's not going on thick. It just looks...
It's going on kind of thick, actually. But
yeah, I'm not sure what's up with that.
It might be an older bottle.
Maybe.
I'm not 100% sure. One thing you want to be a little careful of when you're applying a wash is with surfaces that change a lot, like on this. If you're flicking too quickly, you can develop bubbles in the paint, and when those dry, it'll create a little circle where the edge of the bubble was sitting, because it will pop eventually, and it's all coalesced around the edge of the bubble in the meantime. So to give you a sort of an example, that's an unwashed side, and that side has wash on it, and it creates this dark, grungy sort of look that
we want.
That in this case we really want. And another thing you can do with wash, though, is because it's translucent. So I painted a giant scorpion a little while ago. I didn't really want it looking muddy, for example, but I did want to not have it look bright and shiny and new either. So I actually took a very small brush and I applied the wash in very thin layers to build up a shadowing effect and create sort of a shading built into the scorpion. So not only will it shade with the light that's naturally cast on it, but it will also have sort of a contour and shading to it as part of the model itself, which can help sell sort of the dimensionality of it a little more. I think it turned out pretty well. It's like a red and brass giant scorpion. So while I'm applying a lot here, I am not going like crazy with my brush and like splattering it everywhere. I'm trying to sort of control the volume of where I put on it. And if you ever get too much wash in an area, because it's so thin, you can actually wipe it off, most of it off, with like a paper towel. Or you can take a drier brush. This is like separated or something, because like all the liquid is...
I don't know. I shook it pretty seriously.
You might have shaken it too much, actually.
Maybe, so that there's more pigment in it.
What was I saying? But yeah, you can create sort of shading effects with wash by applying it in very light ways. I also painted a villain that we ran into called Coromonth, who wears sort of a white suit, and a white ivory suit, but the suit by itself was just too much white. So I actually took teeny tiny amounts of black wash and created like lines in the suit where like stitching would be, just to sort of help define the shape of the body. And I felt like that came out pretty well.
That came out amazingly well. The detail was really impressive. Teeny tiny little line.
And that's just used with a very small brush and a very teeny tiny amount of wash. Because wash is so thin, it lets you control the volume on a brush. A dry brush will actually suck it up off of a model into it, so if you have some in a crevice where you don't really want it, you can actually take a drier brush and stick it in the corner and suck it out. Suck most of it out, at least. It's an interesting type of paint. So I'm looking much more grungy here, which is what I'm going for. What do you think?
Yeah, good. I'll show you.
So
Mine is coming up in a second.
it just sort of creates a more lived-in look for something for sets like this, though. So that's sort of the nice part about washing a set, is that it makes it look like it belongs there. Lived in, things like that. Or if it's a rock or something, it makes it look more weathered and part of the environment that it's in.
Yeah. This is particularly kind of dramatic on the top. I was just washing, and I'll show you the difference between an unwashed on top there and the part that's washed. It's still shiny because it's wet, but it really starts showing the grain pattern. I'm letting it puddle up in a few places.
And that's something you can do later too, is like maybe, because these are maybe in the forest, something you can do after it's dried is take a green wash and like put some mold or moss, sort of algae like look that's coming up the legs a little bit, where it might be touching the forest floor. We have like a green colored wash and a blue colored wash that we also use occasionally. The green one was used in that sewer tile set that we showed earlier, because that was all the green there was actually wash applied on top of a gray paint. So it's sort of like an algae sitting on top of a sewer made out of stone or concrete. So I have my outsides washed here, and it looks much darker and less clean. And I'm going to be doing the insides. So one thing I like to do with the insides of things is that dirt tends to collect in corners and edges. So I like to make sure I have a nice amount around my edges. We had some wagons that we painted really early, and I wanted to make sure they'd look like they'd been carrying a lot of things. So I really wore down the corners and edges where boxes would have been rubbing against with umber wash to give them that used appearance. So one of the easiest places to get bubbles are when you have ridges like these floors. If you run your brush along it against the ridges, that bouncing movement can create bubbles quite easily. But doing it that way can help you deposit the wash in the cracks where you might want them to be, like, you know, extra dirty, because they're the cracks in the floorboards where guards who have been wandering around outside are stepping with their dirty combat armor, shoes, sabatons. And, or should I say greaves? Anyway, whatever armor they're wearing, it depends a lot, but something you might want is to get it in those cracks. So one thing that wash really responds well to is it doesn't like to go thickly where there's no paint, but if the whole thing has like this moist pile of wash in it, it will actually move around on itself fairly easily. And you can use that to your advantage to sort of position the wash where you want it to be drying. Yeah, so, you know, I don't want this to, I want it to look a little dirty, but it's not like abandoned. So I'm trying to strike a nice balance between wear and dirt and being used still. You don't want it to look completely like it's been left to nature, necessarily. Although you can, if you're making something like a ruin or anything like that.
Mm-hmm. Next week we'll give you lessons on how to ruin things. That's not what you meant.
No. Yeah, so just trying to make sure I like how it looks in terms of the dirt and everything before I move on. And you have, because it takes so long to dry, you have a lot of leeway about getting it where you want it to be. Here it's sort of drying over on that side. So it creates that sort of rustic, inconsistent look when you apply it fairly thickly.
Should probably do the bottom too.
Yep. So the inside walls here don't particularly have a lot in this print to go on, but I am going to apply a layer of wash to them so they have a consistent tone, a consistent color. Because it will, even on this darker wood color, it will tone it down a little. Make it a little more brown, a little less bright. And I just want to make sure that it doesn't look like it stands out. So I'm just applying a little bit of wash on the inside here to give it that sort of tone. So my tower's coming along, and now I just need to get the bottom. So luckily I'm wearing gloves, so my hands aren't as big of a mess as they could be. And again with this, you're generally not going to see this in any sort of combat unless you're, well, I suppose
knocking over the tower.
I should say knocking over a tower isn't unheard of in D&D. So, but technically speaking, you're generally not going to see a lot of the bottom of it unless you're a very motivated group of of D&D players who have an elephant or something, you know, or someone who can turn into an elephant at least, mammoth, whatever.
Baby mammoth.
But you want the tone to at least match, because there's nothing that can sort of set you off. Like, oh, look at that beautiful tower, and then you catch a tiny glimpse of the underside, and it looks completely different from the rest of the tower. So you just want to make sure that it at least matches with the rest of the piece, even in places where you're not generally gonna see anything. And that's all that I'm doing down here, really. Because and then once I have that all done and everything is covered, I'm going to want to just give it one final look over, see if there's any changes I want to make before I sort of finalize things. Any spots I might have missed, things like that. So I like to hold it away from myself a little bit, and any areas where I'm like, that could be a little different, you know, just give it a little change, maybe add a little more, things like that, to sort of give some alterations before you let it sit down to dry. Like, this spot didn't get as much wash as I would like it to have. So I'm just going to grab a tiny bit and pop it in to that corner where it didn't quite reach the first time. Go around, yeah. So here's a little bandit tower, or guard tower, however you want to use it. We'll probably end up fighting people in a bandit tower with our luck. Yeah, so there you have it. This needs to just sit back and dry for a while. Do you want to try and wash the other tower? Do you want to let them dry?
Does that look okay?
Yeah, I think that's fine. It's about 5. We usually end around 5.
Yeah, I think I'm okay with letting them dry and starting with them next time.
Yeah, so these, well, they're pretty much dry. These pieces we were working on earlier. It never hurts to let them dry a little longer. Wash on a still wet paint can cause it to sort of seep away from where you placed it, so it's always good to let your piece be thoroughly dry before you go about washing it. That's all the paint I avoided getting on my fingers by wearing gloves. If you're painting a miniature figure, or something like a horse, for example, and there's not a place to hold it, and it's not like a big piece of scenery, a glove can be a great way to help both keep your fingers clean, but also keep the miniature clean. Just some basic nitrile or whatever kind of gloves you have. Not only does it keep paint off your fingers so you don't walk away like that, but it also keeps the oils in your skin from getting mixed into the model and even rubbing away paint. So using gloves is a great easy way to do that. There are other things that you can do. You could take, let's say you have an empty bottle like this, throw some sticky tack on the top, sticky tack the horse right onto that empty bottle, and now you can sit there and paint the horse while holding the bottle instead of the horse. And the nice part about that is if you use something that's wider, like a bottle, or there are purpose-made handles as well. Doing this all the time, this pinching, can start to give you some like tendon fatigue in your fingers, but holding something that's wider, more like that, is a lot easier on your hand. So, threw a lot of different painting tips out. while we were working.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty happy with how these are looking now that they're roughed up a bit. And we do painting streams like this on Tuesdays and Fridays at 3 p.m. Eastern.
Yep.
We have our D&D show that we talked about is 2 p.m. Eastern on Sundays.
Sunday.
Almost every week, outside of some holidays and stuff.
Can you say it like that?
No. And if you want, my wife and I are looking at, in the nearish future, starting doing a little video gaming as well in the evenings every once in a while. So keep an eye out on our channel. Thank you, Tech Violence, and everyone who came along with Tech Violence.
Thank you so much.
We love having new people seeing what we're doing. And I hope some of you check out our D&D games and other stuff that we do. It'd be great to have you around.
Yep.
So.
Thank you. And goodbye. Camera's backward.
Yeah, we'll see you all later. Bye.